In the 1980s, no car came close to the Porsche 959. It was faster than a Ferrari, smarter than a Lamborghini, and more advanced than anything on the road. With 450 horsepower, a 198 miles per hour top speed, and a 0 to 60 time of just 3.6 seconds, it crushed every performance record of its time. Its all-wheel drive system, sequential twin turbocharging, and adaptive suspension was so advanced that supercars today are still using the same technology. Even Bill Gates had to change US laws just to drive one. So, how did Porsche build a car so far ahead of its time that modern supercars still follow its blueprint? Let's find out. But first, subscribe and turn on notifications for more mind-blowing car stories. It all started in 1981, when Porsche's new managing director, Peter Schultz, took over. He had big plans for the company, but one idea stood out. Porsche's chief engineer, Helmut Bott, wanted to push the limits of the 911 platform and develop a new kind of supercar, a car that would be faster, more stable, and still practical enough for the road. Bott wasn't just thinking about another rear-engine sports car, he wanted something radical, an all-wheel drive system, cutting-edge aerodynamics, and race-proven technology. Schultz gave him the green light, and the project that would become the Porsche 959 was born. Porsche knew that racing pushed technology forward, so Bott set his sights on the Group B Rally Series. The rules allowed for extreme performance, and manufacturers were building some of the fastest, most advanced cars ever made. Porsche wanted in. They started testing new systems on heavily modified 911s, fine-tuning the all-wheel drive technology, and learning what worked. In 1983, Porsche unveiled the Group B prototype at the Frankfurt Motor Show. It looked like something from another world, sleek, futuristic, and packed with technology that no other car had. But this was just the beginning. Porsche didn't cut corners. Every part of the 959 was designed with one goal in mind: maximum performance. The heart of the car was a 2.85-litre twin-turbocharged flat-six engine borrowed from the legendary Porsche 956 and 962 race cars. It used a sequential turbocharging system, where one turbo spooled up at lower RPMs and the second kicked in at higher speeds. This gave the 959 smooth, constant power, unlike the brutal turbo lag found in older Porsche models. The numbers? 450 horsepower, 500 Nm of torque, and this wasn't even the most powerful version. Porsche later offered an upgrade that boosted the 959 to 530 horsepower, pushing its top speed to over 209 miles per hour. To handle all that power, Porsche developed the Porsche Steuerkupplung (PSK) all-wheel drive system. This system could automatically adjust power distribution between the front and rear wheels, adapting to different driving conditions in real time. Under full throttle, it could send up to 80% of power to the rear wheels, maximizing acceleration. The 959's aerodynamics were yet another breakthrough. Porsche sculpted the body to reduce drag and increase stability. The result? A drag coefficient of just 0.31, better than most modern supercars today. It also featured automatic ride height adjustment, allowing the car to stay planted at high speeds while still handling rough roads. To keep weight down, Porsche used aluminium, Kevlar, and Nomex instead of traditional steel. Even the wheels were special: magnesium alloys with hollow chambers, equipped with a built-in tire pressure monitoring system. The 959 was ahead of its time, but that also meant problems. Porsche planned to enter it in Group B racing, but the series was cancelled before the car could compete. That left Porsche with a high-tech machine and no racing program. On top of that, production delays pushed the 959's launch back. The road version debuted at the 1985 Frankfurt Motor Show, but customer deliveries didn't start until 1987. Porsche had spent more money developing the car than they could ever charge for it. Each one cost over $500,000 to build, but they sold them for just $225,000 just to get them into the hands of customers. In total, 292 units were made between 1987 and 1988, plus a few more built from spare parts in 1992 and 1993. These later models were even more expensive, featuring speed-sensitive dampeners and selling for nearly $747,500, far more than the original cars. Even though Porsche lost money on every single 959, it didn't matter. This car was a statement, a glimpse into the future, and when it finally hit the streets, it proved one thing. The Porsche 959 wasn't just fast, it was a revolution. At a time when most supercars struggled to break the 180 mph barrier, the 959 shattered expectations. No other road car in the world had this much technology, this much performance, and this much precision. When Auto, Motor and Sport tested the 959, they clocked a top speed of 198 mph and a 0 to 62 mph time of 3.7 seconds. At the time, these numbers were unheard of. The 959 became the fastest legal road car ever tested. Guinness World Records even recognized its 0 to 100 km/h acceleration time as the quickest in the world. But the numbers, they didn't stop there. Road and Track pushed the 959 even further. Their tests showed 0 to 60 mph in just 3.6 seconds, 0 to 100 mph in 8.2 seconds, and a quarter-mile time of 11.9 seconds at 119.5 mph. For comparison, the Ferrari F40, its main rival, was slightly faster at the top end, but significantly harder to control. The 959's all-wheel drive system gave it the traction to launch harder and corner faster. Even in comfort trim, the 959 left everything else in the dust. Car and Driver, well, they recorded a 0 to 60 mph time of 3.6 seconds, which is nearly a full second faster than any other car tested in the 1980s. And then, Porsche took things even further. Porsche wasn't satisfied with just being the fastest, they wanted more. So, they built the Porsche 959S, a more extreme version designed for ultimate performance. They removed weight by getting rid of air conditioning, power windows, rear seats, and the automatic ride height system. They also upgraded the turbochargers, boosting power to 515 horsepower. The result? A top speed of 211 mph. That number, tested at the Nardo Ring in 1988, made it the fastest car in the world at the time. Only 29 units of the 959S were built, making it one of the rarest and most sought-after Porsches ever. The 959 wasn't just about speed, it introduced technology that would shape every supercar for the next 3 decades. The sequential turbocharging system, it solved the biggest problem with turbocharged cars: lag. Instead of both turbos kicking at the same time, the small turbos spooled up first, giving the 959 instant power. Then, at higher RPMs, the larger turbo took over, keeping acceleration smooth and relentless. Even today, car manufacturers still struggle with turbo lag, using hybrid systems or complex electronics to fix a problem that the 959 simply already solved nearly 40 years ago. Then, there was the PSK all-wheel drive system. Porsche designed the 959's all-wheel drive system to be smarter than anything before it. It could actively adjust power distribution between the front and the rear tires, sending up to 80% of the power to the rear wheels under hard acceleration. This wasn't just a system for bad weather, it made the 959 faster, safer, and more stable at high speeds. Modern supercars like the Bugatti Chiron, Nissan GT-R, and Lamborghini Huracan all use advanced all-wheel drive systems inspired by the 959. It completely changed how high-performance cars delivered power. The Lamborghini Countach, one of the most famous supercars of its time, had a top speed of 183 mph. The Ferrari Testarossa, 180 mph. Even the legendary Ferrari F40, which came out after the 959, only just beat it with 201 mph. But while the F40 was brutal and unforgiving, the 959 was refined and sophisticated. It had adjustable suspension, tire pressure monitoring, and even a dashboard display that could show real-time power distribution. It was a glimpse into the future of performance cars. Even tech billionaire Bill Gates couldn't resist it. He imported a 959 into the US, but couldn't legally drive it because of outdated import laws. So, he helped create a new law just so he could own one. That's how much of a game changer this car was. The Porsche 959 wasn't just the best car of the 1980s, it was the blueprint for every modern supercar. But Porsche didn't build this machine just for the streets, it was meant to dominate the racetrack. The 959 started as a Group B race car, but by the time it was ready, the series had already collapsed. That could have been the end, but Porsche, they weren't about to let their hard work go to waste. They turned to one of the most brutal motorsports events in history, the Paris-Dakar Rally. It was a 6,200-mile torture test across deserts, mountains, and impossible terrain. Porsche had never attempted anything like this before, but the 959's all-wheel drive system made it the perfect machine for the job. In 1984, before the 959 was even fully ready, Porsche entered the rally with a modified 911S called the 953. They finished 1st, 6th, and 25th, proving their new technology could handle the extreme conditions. In 1985, they entered 3 prototype 959s. The car had the right suspension and all-wheel drive, but they were still using the older 953's engine. They couldn't finish the race, but Porsche learned what they needed to make the 959 even better. Then came 1986. The fully developed 959 rally cars lined up at the starting line, and this time, nothing could stop them. They finished 1st, 2nd, and 6th. It wasn't just a victory, it was domination. The 959 had proven itself not just as a fast car, but as one of the toughest performance machines ever built. Porsche, though, they weren't done. They wanted to see how the 959's technology would perform on the circuit. So, they built the Porsche 961, a race-spec version of the 959, and they sent it to Le Mans in 1986. Competing against some of the fastest race cars in the world, the 961 finished 7th overall and 1st in its class. The next year, they tried again, but this time, disaster struck. A misshift at high speed, it caused the car to crash into the guardrail. It caught fire, and by the time the marshals arrived, most of the rear end was gone. This was the end of the 961's racing career. The 959 didn't just influence Porsche, it shaped the future of supercars. Its all-wheel drive system was so advanced that modern Porsches, like the 911 Turbo S and the 918 Spider, still use the same basic principles. The way the 959 managed turbocharging, aerodynamics, and suspension became the standard for every high-performance car that followed. Even today, people still want one. Back in the 1980s, Porsche only built 292 of them, plus a few extra using spare parts. They sold for $225,000 when new, but today, you wouldn't find one for less than $1 million. And the list of people who own one? Bill Gates, Jerry Seinfeld, Martina Navratilova. Look at any modern supercar today, and you'll see the 959's DNA. Adjustable ride height? The 959 did it first. Advanced wheel drive? The 959 set the standard. Turbocharging without massive lag? The 959 solved that problem decades ago. The Bugatti Veyron, Nissan GT-R, McLaren P1. Every single one of them. They owe something to this Porsche. The 959 wasn't just fast, it wasn't just advanced, it was a look into the future. And now we want to hear from you. Which legendary car should we cover next? Let us know in the comments.